Why do so many retellings of the Mahabharata remember Arjuna's arrows, Bhima's rage, and Yudhishthira's dilemmas, but barely pause for Nakula and Sahadeva? The youngest Pandavas are often treated like background figures in their own family. Yet the epic keeps them present at every major turn. That raises a sharper question. Did the story ignore them, or do we only notice the heroes who make noise? The first surprise is that their quietness is not weakness. Nakula and Sahadeva are skilled, loyal, battle-tested, and constantly trusted. But they do not draw attention the way the epic's larger personalities do. That matters because the Mahabharata is not only a story about dramatic greatness. It is also a story about supporting strength, invisible discipline, and the people who keep a fragile order standing while others receive the applause. Look at the family structure. Yudhishthira carries the burden of kingship. Bhima carries force. Arjuna carries excellence and crisis. In that lineup, Nakula and Sahadeva almost disappear by comparison. But that is exactly the point. When a family depends too much on visible brilliance, the quieter forms of competence become easy to underestimate. The epic lets that happen just long enough for us to ask what we are failing to see. Their importance becomes clearer when the Pandavas lose everything. In exile, humiliation, wandering, and uncertainty, Nakula and Sahadeva do not splinter away from the family's pain. They endure it. They stay. They adapt. The Mahabharata quietly tests every brother under pressure, and the younger two do not fail that test. Their contribution is not spectacle. It is reliability when reliability is hardest to maintain. So this episode is really asking two questions at once. Why are Nakula and Sahadeva often ignored? And what kind of civilization only remembers the loudest forms of strength? To answer that, we have to begin not at Kurukshetra, but at the way the younger brothers were placed inside the Pandava story from the start, valuable, capable, and almost destined to be overshadowed. From the beginning, Nakula and Sahadeva enter a family narrative already occupied by immense force. Yudhishthira is the future king. Bhima is raw power. Arjuna becomes the central warrior genius. By the time the younger twins arrive in popular memory, the main symbolic roles already feel assigned. That does not make them lesser. It means they inherit a harder task. They must prove value inside a story where the first headlines already belong to others. The epic also refuses to exaggerate them into artificial celebrities. That restraint is meaningful. Nakula and Sahadeva are not written as hidden superstars waiting to steal the center. They are written as integrated members of a larger order. In modern terms, that makes them harder to market, but more realistic to study. Not every essential figure is built to dominate the room. Some are built to stabilize it. And this is where their differences start to matter. Nakula's strengths are elegance, technical discipline, martial skill, and the ability to care for one of warfare's most precious resources, horses. These are not glamorous gifts to a casual audience, but they are civilization-level gifts in an epic world. Armies move, survive, and coordinate because somebody understands care, order, and readiness beneath the visible charge of battle. Sahadeva's profile is even easier to miss if you only look for dramatic noise. He is associated with intelligence, foresight, observation, and controlled speech. He often feels like the brother who sees more than he says. That kind of strength is dangerous to overlook because it rarely announces itself. It waits, measures, and serves only when the moment is right. The Mahabharata is full of loud certainties. Sahadeva represents quiet discernment. So their obscurity is partly structural. They are younger brothers in a family that already has a king, a giant, and a prodigy. They do not exist to compete with those roles. They exist to complete them. And the moment we understand that, the question becomes sharper. If Nakula and Sahadeva are not center stage heroes, what exact kind of strength are they carrying that keeps the Pandava story coherent? Nakula is often remembered first for beauty, and that can be misleading. In the Mahabharata, beauty is not his whole identity. It is almost a distraction from his deeper quality, disciplined stewardship. He understands horses, order, and readiness. In a warrior civilization, that is not decorative knowledge. It is practical intelligence. Nakula represents the person whose competence keeps movement possible long before the battlefield gives credit to anyone. He is also a warrior in his own right. But again, the epic frames him through precision more than theatrical domination. Nakula's strength feels clean, measured, and internally ordered. That matters because the Mahabharata is constantly comparing kinds of power. Bhima shows power that breaks through. Arjuna shows power that perfects a skill into legend. Nakula shows power that maintains quality, balance, and graceful control without turning competence into ego. That same pattern continues in exile. Nakula does not collapse into self-pity because his gifts are less celebrated. He carries himself with dignity through loss, wandering, and uncertainty. This is a major clue to his character. Many people can look impressive when rank protects them. Nakula still serves when the family is humiliated and stripped down. Quiet dignity under loss is one of the hardest virtues in the epic, and he sustains it. And when we think in strategic rather than cinematic terms, Nakula becomes easier to respect. Armies are not only made of champions. They are made of organization, maintenance, discipline, and trusted subcommand. A brother who can preserve those functions is not peripheral. He is load-bearing. The Mahabharata quietly honors that by never treating Nakula as useless. It simply refuses to flatter viewers who only admire the loudest expression of ability. But Nakula's lesson grows even clearer when we place him beside Sahadeva. One embodies refined practical discipline. The other embodies measured insight. Together they show that the Pandavas do not survive on force and brilliance alone. They survive because a quieter layer of support keeps the family from becoming nothing but ego and reaction. And that brings us to the brother whose silence may be the most underestimated of all. If Nakula teaches the value of disciplined usefulness, Sahadeva teaches the burden of restrained knowledge. Tradition often remembers him as wise, observant, and capable of seeing more than he openly says. Whether we read that literally or symbolically, the lesson is the same. Sahadeva represents a mind that does not confuse knowing with performing. He understands timing. He understands measure. And he refuses the vanity of speaking simply to be noticed. This is why Sahadeva rarely feels like a self-advertising hero. He supports. He observes. He remains aligned with the larger need of the family instead of turning every gift into personal theater. In modern storytelling, that can look passive. In epic psychology, it can signal maturity. Not every mind needs to dominate the conversation. Some minds are protecting coherence by refusing to add noise to an already unstable world. Strategically, Sahadeva matters because judgment is not only about courage. It is about sequence, timing, and consequence. The Mahabharata keeps showing us what happens when powerful people act without enough reflection. Sahadeva stands as a counter-image to that chaos. He reminds us that wisdom is often invisible from a distance because it spends more time preventing errors than announcing triumphs. Prevention rarely looks dramatic until it is missing. And once Nakula and Sahadeva are seen together, the design becomes elegant. One guards order through care, readiness, and refinement. The other guards order through thought, discernment, and restraint. They are not secondary because they lack value. They are secondary because the value they carry is easy to miss until a family or a kingdom begins to lose its quieter stabilizers. The Mahabharata trusts the attentive viewer to notice that pattern. So the real issue is no longer whether the younger twins were as flashy as their brothers. The real issue is whether we have learned to respect forms of strength that do not beg for attention. If we cannot value that kind of support, our reading of the Mahabharata becomes shallow. We see only explosion, not structure. Only heroes in front, not the disciplined human framework that keeps heroes from collapsing. Now we can answer the first question. Nakula and Sahadeva are often ignored because they embody strengths that popular memory tends to undervalue. They are not built around loud crisis, spectacular vows, or singular philosophical speeches. They are built around fidelity, technical skill, service, discernment, and restraint. Those qualities do not always dominate retellings, but without them the larger heroic structure becomes weaker than it appears. They also correct a common misunderstanding about epic greatness. A civilization cannot survive on stars alone. It needs people who preserve order, absorb pressure, and remain trustworthy when the central figures are wounded, distracted, or overwhelmed. Nakula and Sahadeva are the Pandava reminder that not every essential person is meant to dominate the narrative. Some are meant to keep the narrative from breaking apart. That is why their silence still matters. It asks us what we notice in our own lives. Do we only admire the person who speaks the loudest, wins the duel, or takes the stage? Or can we also recognize the one who keeps duty alive without applause? The Mahabharata becomes deeper when we learn to honor support that does not advertise itself. Quiet strength is still strength. Uncelebrated duty is still duty. And once we see that, the younger Pandavas stop looking like missing pieces. They start looking like a deliberate teaching. The epic is telling us that fame and importance are not the same. Noise and necessity are not the same. Families, institutions, and nations often fail because they learn to celebrate brilliance but forget to protect reliability. Nakula and Sahadeva stand against that mistake with almost quiet defiance. So why are Nakula and Sahadeva so often ignored? Because they reveal a kind of greatness that only patient attention can recognize. The Mahabharata keeps them quiet on purpose, so we can discover whether we have the depth to see them. If this episode helped you see the Mahabharata more deeply, like this video, subscribe to EkalavyaLearn, and turn on the bell icon to get new videos on time. Next, Bhishma on the Bed of Arrows asks what wisdom can still teach after a lifetime of compromise.